time device is ready. It's time to pick a monster.
Finster, the evil leprechaun scientist working for Rita Repulsa. The Power Rangers franchise has created many iconic villains such as Lord Zed, Thrax, and Rita Repulsa. These villains were often surrounded by henchmen like Golda who did their dirty work. Today we are taking a look at one of Rita Repulsa's henchmen, Finster. Finster is a unique character. He looks like a cross between a leprechaun and a Scottish terrier and hails from a faraway planet. His evil skill lies in the art of monster making, since Finster was a genius at sculpting monsters and then bringing them to life. He thus became Rita's monster maker and served both her and Lord Zed during his time in the series. He does, however, have a tragic backstory and a terribly dark personality. Keep watching to know more. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Old days. I used to be somebody around here. Monster maker extraordinaire.
Finster's alien origins. Finster's backstory is detailed in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2017 annual comic, and it is quite intriguing and terribly tragic. The comic makes it clear that Finster is not from the Earth and is actually an alien hailing from a planet known as Cladius. Finster is a master craftsman and happily married to another alien from his race named Plepra. However, at some point in his life, he became interested in dark and devious creatures, making sculptures of monsters and hideous beings. He claimed that he saw some twisted beauty in darkness, and that pain and suffering inspired him immensely, leading to his monstrous creations. Further, he also managed to come up with a way to bring his sculptures to life, which resulted in these monsters running rampage on Finster's town. His wife Plepra grew increasingly worried about him as he kept getting more and more drawn into his work and would shut himself in his workroom for ages, sculpting his terrifying pieces. She feared that something was terribly wrong, since he became very disengaged from life and disinterested in their marriage as well. One day, one of his creations wreaked havoc in the town, setting fire to everything in sight. Finster, who was very much aware that it was his own creation that was setting fire to everything in sight, simply stood by the window, embracing the destruction and even being proud of it. Plepra found him admiring the carnage and was shocked when she realized that their village was being burned down because of her husband's actions. She saw his creation and sculptures and was horrified that her husband had such an evil bent of mind. In fact, she did not believe him to be evil at first and thought he was mentally unwell and thus had given into the darkness. She, like a dutiful wife, simply wanted to get him the help that he needed to get better. However, Finster did not like that proposition. He believed that his creations were a work of art and that they needed to be brought to life so that people could understand how there was beauty even in the ugliest of things. In fact, he was so against getting any sort of help that he forcibly held back his wife from going and getting help. This resulted in a tussle between the two, and in an effort to stop Plepra from going and telling anyone about him and his monsters, he ended up killing his wife. He tried to pull her back, and that caused her to fall and snap her neck on a table in his workroom. Finster was horrified that he had murdered his wife, and he began panicking because he thought his town's residents would find out about all that he had done. He grumbled that all that he wanted to do was create something magnificent and that he had never intended to kill anyone, least of all his own wife. Rita Repulsa arrived on the scene at this point, and she overheard Finster's remarks. She took the chance to tell Finster that she had been looking for a great craftsman who could see the beauty within darkness. She firmly believed that only a craftsman of this kind would be able to employ the unique material she had just acquired, magic clay that gave life to anything molded by it. Finster initially hesitated because he worried about what the locals would do to him if they ever found out. Rita revealed to him that she had slaughtered all the townspeople and burned the town to the ground. Hence, she had finished what Finster had begun and thus freed him from any obligations or responsibilities. She further lured him in by suggesting that he could create life from scratch. When Finster saw his wife's lifeless body, he decided to take Rita up on her offer because he believed he could bring her back. And that is the story of how a master craftsman gave into the darkness and ended up joining Rita Repulsa's crew of villains.
11 before. Here goes.
It worked! You did it, my little dingbat!
Finster's role in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. In the series, Finster was voiced by the late Robert Axelrod, who also voiced Lokar and Lord Zed. He took over the role of the chief monster maker, who was responsible for creating all the monsters and creatures Rita Repulsa used in her various schemes. Later, Zordon captured him and several other of her goons, imprisoning them. He was set free after 10,000 years, along with Rita and other of her minions, and the beginning of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series, and upon being released, he resumed his activities. Finster was mostly in charge of producing the monsters and parties that the Rangers faced during the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Finster accomplished this by creating the monsters out of Rita's magic clay and baking them in a unique device he termed the Monster-matic in his workshop. He was shown to be a talented alchemist, potion maker and inventor, providing a variety of potions and tools in addition to being skilled at providing monsters and henchmen for his commanders. He was also incredibly intelligent and sort of an all-knowing, omnipotent, wise being, so he gave Rita and even Zed on occasion advice as well. Finster was abruptly rendered obsolete after Lord Zed's reappearance, since Zed created his own monsters. Although when Zed's first monster invention, Pirantis Head, was killed, Finster had remarked that he could have done a better job, showing that he missed his job and important role. Finster regretted his current position among the evil minions of Rita Repulsa and yearned for the times he had spent with Rita when he was valuable to the team. Further, Rita had also been exiled by Lord Zed, which meant that he was also rendered masterless. He spent his time trying to pass the days, since he, unfortunately, had nothing to do during the time Zed was ruling and Rita was in exile. He hated not being of use or being allowed to create his monstrous creations and see them in action. However, it all changed when Rita freed herself and returned to the moon. She approached Finster, and Finster was shocked to say the least. He thought he was hallucinating at first, but when he realized that she was back for good, he immediately got back to work. Finster, who had nothing better to do and was eager to get back to work producing monsters, suggested a monster army when Rita stated her determination to restore her former authority. Rita, however, turned down this proposal. In order to dupe Zed into marrying her and reclaim her former fame without anybody being able to stop her, she then instructs him to make a love potion. Thus, he was instrumental in Rita and Lord Zed's marriage. Not only that, but he also played an integral role in luring the Power Rangers to the Spectre Theater and capturing them before the Great Evil Wedding. Further, he also used his powers to restore Rita to her original size and make her appear much younger and more beautiful so that Zed would fall in love with her. Rita's reappearance made him the main monster creator of the team once more. Finster returned to creating monsters in the third season, as well as the Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers mini-series. However, it was during this time that Golda learned the truth about the love potion. Golda was not a fan of Rita Repulsa and was devoted to Lord Zed. Thus, he was extremely offended when he found out that the wedding that he had been so heavily against had been the result of a love potion. However, it turned out that Zed was genuinely in love with Rita, and Finster, like everyone else, was shocked to learn that Zed did in fact adore Rita, making the love potion useless in the larger scheme of things. We have to mention his role in Power Rangers Zeo and Power Rangers in Space. In Power Rangers Zeo, after the Master Empire's warriors attacked the Moon Palace with their Quadra fighters, Finster escaped with Zed and Rita. He eventually came back with his masters after their numerous losses to the Zeo Rangers, which made them into a cosmic laughingstock. The evil space aliens started working out of a camper van once the Moon Palace was reduced to rubble. He created a number of violent machines for them, most memorably Louis Kaboom, who served as the Machine Empire's interim ruler until Prince Gasket and Archerina showed up. Finster eventually built a new wand for Rita in Rangers of the Two Worlds Part 1, which was ridiculously more potent than the previous one. This new wand produced a monster that was too powerful even for the Zeo Ultrazord, showing just how skilled he was. Last but not the least, the events of Countdown to Destruction took place when Finster was still employed by Zed and Rita in Power Rangers in Space as a monster maker. His fate was however not disclosed because he was not present when the energy wave struck.
What in the name of wickedness was that? That's what I've been trying to tell you.
What was his fate in the end? Since he was not present when Zordon released the purifying energy wave, his fate was unknown, and fans waited for a long time to get to know what exactly happened to the Master Monster Maker. 20 years later, in Power Rangers Soul of the Dragon, it was disclosed that Finster had also undergone purification just like Divatox, Rita and Zed, and had subsequently joined the Power Rangers as an ally, leaving his dark days behind. He had kept his job as a sculptor in the 25 years following the collapse of the United Alliance of Evil, though he was now creating humanoid molds rather than monsters. Tommy Oliver and Anara paid him a visit while they were attempting to understand the nature of a crystal, and the information he provided allowed them to conclude that Scorpina was responsible for the current rise in gun deaths. But after learning that he was collaborating with Tommy, Scorpina later killed him, although he left one last message before dying in the form of a sculpture of himself in which he expressed regret for his previous wrongdoings and assured Tommy that he would be able to save J.J. Oliver before dissipating into dust, bringing the story of this master sculptor to a close. Thus, he did have a redemption arc in the end, and it is safe to say that he probably would have been a really helpful teammate to have if he had realized how terrible the darkness was and switched sides early on for his own good. Nevertheless, he did get to die knowing that he had helped the Power Rangers and for once was on the side of good.
I'm sorry, my queen. I hate to spoil your celebration.
What was his end goal? An overarching idea that runs throughout his appearances and storyline is that he deeply regretted killing his own wife and desperately wanted to bring her back to life using his abilities. Finster occasionally sculpted a special clay statue of his wife during the 10,000 years of his devoted service to Rita, usually when Rita was away overseeing a monster that he had made for her. His aim was to bring Plepra back to life, and his crazy ideas included the notion that his wife would become his masterpiece and that she would accept and love him for his purported creative brilliance. He once stated that even though he wasn't a fighter like Golda or able to employ Rita's magic, his skills made him a god. He tried to accomplish bringing his wife back by putting a lock of his wife's hair into some clay to make it take on her soul and become real. The Plepra duplicate that emerged from the monster maker did in fact include a remnant of the original. She cried and showed that she was terrified of her husband, just like she had on the fateful day their town had burned down. Finster then threw a tantrum because he was disgusted by her critical gaze and was worried that she would destroy everything once more as she had done before. In an effort to preserve his work and status, Plepra was tragically killed for a second time when he forcefully sliced her off the panel with an axe. After crying for a moment, he suddenly changed his mind and declared that the replica was not her. To support his deranged actions, he pointed out specifics about her characteristics that he had apparently misjudged, such as the fact that his wife would have never looked at him in the manner in which the replica had. In the comic, Finster implied to the reader in a slightly psychologically horrifying manner that Finster had repeatedly killed and resurrected his wife, saying that this was just another failure in a long line of failures. He then started to create a new clay sculpture of Plepra while adamantly stating he would not give up until he achieved perfection and she was flawless. It is safe to say that he failed in his goal and had to live his extremely long life knowing that he had killed his wife and that it was truly beyond his powers to bring her back as she was. Somewhere deep inside, he also knew that his wife would have never approved of his creations and the lifestyle that he had chosen for himself. However, the fact that he was mentally unstable led him to keep trying over and over again. Alternative history: becoming the Dark Pink Ranger. In an alternate split history, Rita gave Finster time off following the Black Dragon occurrences before she vanished. He went into hiding on Earth and started utilizing his newly discovered free time to try and improve his art by capturing two pilots who were conducting a geographic photography survey for Promethea as part of a project for virtual reality technology. To perfect his method for producing beasts and putty patrol agents that could flawlessly pass for humans and enter cities, he tormented them and conducted numerous tests on them. Grace Sterling, who had figured out his evil scheme, asked the Power Rangers for assistance and used her cutting-edge technology to reveal the location of his covert hideout. The Red and Green Rangers were briefly captured, but after being beaten by the Power Rangers, he inexplicably decided to give up. He also planned the attack on Toronto during this time. After the Omega Rangers captured and locked up Lord Zed, Finster was later freed and once again took over as the primary monster creator. When Zed came back, he was impressed with his henchman's performance and decided to make Finster his new Dark Pink Ranger. And that is how Finster even became a ranger at one point, albeit in an alternative timeline.
Not my queen. I'm making a new one named Bones. I'm sure he'll be perfect.
Better be.
What was his personality like? Finster is exceptionally bright, wise, and intelligent. All throughout his appearances, he was established as Rita and Zed's helpful sidekick. Finster made a sincere effort to aid Rita and Zed in achieving their objectives. However, he did so in a pleasant and gentle manner. In fact, he was so calm, gentle, and soft-spoken that fans often never clubbed him with the other villains. They thought he was a chaotic neutral, meaning that he actually had no evil intentions and had simply been persuaded to come over to one particular side. He was also quite rational at multiple points in the show. For example, he claimed that Vampirus was a terrible beast and not at all his cup of tea early on in Season 3. However, he would subsequently have a change of heart though and produce creatures that were at least as tough as Rita's Vampirus. However, there's also another, much darker side of Finster. We cannot forget that he killed his wife Plepra in a fit of rage, and that is how he ended up working for Rita. Plepra had objected to his work when she was alive, and he definitely did not like that. In fact, he was so full of himself that he insisted that Plepra wasn't her when she expressed her disapproval of his creations. He was thus utterly insane, and also in a delusional manner believed that Plepra would one day love him regardless of his destructive and evil hobby. By killing the recreation of Plepra he had made with an axe, Finster demonstrated his obvious craving for blood, a craving that had no regard for love, family, or any other normal emotion. Finster often marveled at his creations and continued to work as the millennia went by, but he grew colder and allowed the evil's darkness to overwhelm him. He boasted that everyone in the world knew about his work and was referred to as the dreaded demon artist.
Wonderful idea. I'll dig out my best monster molds and get started right away.
Powers and abilities. As far as his powers and abilities go, Finster was definitely not much of a fighter, unless you take into account his alternative arc as the Dark Pink Ranger. All of his talents were largely in the field of monster making. Finster was an undeniable master at transforming clay sculptures into monster-like creatures, and he did so at the behest of his masters. He used the Monster-Matic, which was a kiln or oven that he kept in his own workshop. The Monster-Matic animated and developed the clay sculpture of monsters that Finster made to human size. His creations demonstrate Finster's extensive knowledge and ability to produce monsters. Finster was also frequently shown using a carving knife to carve his clay into monster molds. And in the episode Happy Birthday Zack, he was the one who used a blacksmith's hammer to make the nasty knight sword. Not only was he good at sculpting and carving things, but he was also skilled at making potions. He was extremely interested in alchemy and even created the love potion that Rita would use on Lord Zed to make him marry her. Interestingly, Finster, as depicted in the episode Happy Birthday Zack, kept a book with lovely illustrations of his monsters, showing that he was also an incredible artist. He was thus skilled and gifted when it came to creating things. It is a shame that he used it all for evil purposes. Thus, it is safe to say that even the villainous henchmen in the Power Rangers franchise have elaborate and striking backstories. They are unique and complex characters in their own right. Finster serves as an integral character in the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger series, since without him, the monsters and the parties would not even exist. What do you think about Finster? Is he good or evil? Tell us in the comment section below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
Cut through any material in the universe and holds great magical powers. There. Huh, almost.